Well, happy Friday. It's nice to see you guys here. We're going to have a lot of fun today. We're going to be covering something really, really fun and very interesting. We're going to cover a lot of nice things. I think the biggest thing that we want to accomplish today is we want to learn how we can be more effective in a listing presentation. How do we get more, how do we win more in a listing presentation? How do we get people to do what we want them to do legally, okay? Nothing illegal. We want them to do certain things, right? So we're gonna talk about ways that we can do this. And a lot of this is, it's almost like, this is going to be very grammatical. We're going to cover, it's almost like language arts when we went to school. We're going to break down sentences. And we want to learn the structure of the sentence and how to place words and where to place the words so that it's going to be the most powerful usage of what we say. And I think a lot of times what you're going to discover is you're already saying these things. However, you're not saying it in the right order, in the right patterns, not with the right emphasis, with just enough oomph to give you a little bit of success. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Because I think, you know, we're always going to do business. I mean, the people in here, you guys are going to do business. That's not the issue. We just want to do a little bit more business. And if you can take away just a few things where you can do 1, 2, 3 extra deals in a year, I think your hour and a half spent today will be definitely worthwhile. So that's what we're going to cover. You guys ready? Yep. Right? Pen and paper, you got that? Pads? Ready to go. Okay, good. All right. So let's talk about the first part of what we're going to cover is Neuro-Linguistic Programming, which is NLP for short. Okay? And we're going to cover what we call if-then statements. Okay? So this is what I mean. Okay, well, I'll give you an example. So write this down. If you really want to sell, then it makes sense to ... sign with me today. Okay, very simple, very simply put. And you say, well, you know, what's so special about that? Well, if you really want to sell, then it makes sense, pause, ... right? The ... is the pause. Sign with me today. And you're putting emphasis on the sign with me today. And you may say that already. If what I say really makes sense, sign with me today. But when you say it that way, as opposed to if you really do want to move or you really want to sell, you pause. Then sign with me today. And then, you kind of maybe do a head nod and a head shake, right? You do this, sign with me today. I think it's a little bit more powerful. Okay, we're starting with a very simple sentence. Another example is, if you really do want to sell, then it would be smart to list with me today. Okay, you're already giving them encouragement. It would be smart. It would be a good move to list with me today. I'll give you guys a minute to kind of write that down. So I'll repeat it. If you really want to sell, then it would be smart ... for you to sign today, or list today, or buy today. Whatever it is. It could be whatever it is you want them to do.
And then the next one, they're going to come back and say,
What are they going to say?
they're going to say,
Why?
Why?
Yes.
Are we face to face?
Yes.
Good, we're face to face. So let's go over my powerful marketing program. Okay, let's look at the top 10 things I'm going to do for you today. Let's look at this. Because as we spoke about on the phone, I'm going to deliver an aggressive plan for you to sell your home. So let's go over that. Okay? And there are further things, and she may say something else. Well, I'm just not convinced. And, well, Judy, I understand that. So are you interested in having a passive agent or an aggressive agent? And you can follow it along. Okay? Everybody good with that so far? Here's another line. If you really want to upgrade or downgrade or downsize, whatever it may be, it would be a good choice ... to accept this offer. All right, we've got somebody that has told you they want to do something, whatever the motivation is, right? Whatever that is. ... to accept this offer. If maybe it's $5,000 off list price, and you're a little bit nervous because they said, well, we really want $250,000. And the offer comes in, it's a cash deal to close in 2 weeks, it's a beautiful offer, but the buyer, or the buyer's agent says, you know what, we're not going to take it, this is as high as we're going. And $245 is the price that they're coming in at, and you know it's a clean offer, you know they should take it, but they've told you that they really want $250. So you come back with their motivation, right? And then you hit them with, it would make sense, it'd be smart to accept this offer. Now that's the first part of your conversation. The first part of your dialogue is, if then, ... whatever the embedded, what they call an embedded command, do this, sign this, lower the price, clean your house, right? We've had that. We've seen a couple of houses on Caravan where, it smelled like cat, right? The cat house or dog or whatever. It's going to happen. Whatever you need for them to do, ... clean this house so that we can get you to California, or we can get you down to Hillsborough, or we can get you closer to the family, or we can get you closer to the grandkids in a timely fashion. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that make sense? Wouldn't that be fabulous? So we've got if then, okay, this is the structure of what we're talking about. If then, okay, ... embedded command, sign the contract, lower the price, ... So that's kind of separated. So we can get you closer to California, so we can get you closer to the grandkids, whatever the motivation is. So you can do this. Pause. Isn't that what you want? Okay, isn't that what you want? And we're talking about basic sales 101. You guys know all this. And if you haven't heard this, well, it's new and that's good. But if you've heard it, are we using it? That's the other question. So this is kind of a reminder and a refresher. So wouldn't that be great as your anchor? We're going to cover more about that in a minute. You're starting to look for agreement. So can you guys think of examples of anchors? Wouldn't that be great as one? Can you think of anything else? No? Does that make sense? Wouldn't you agree? So you can end that way. So you can say, wouldn't you agree? Doesn't that make sense? I mean, that's really the right thing to do, isn't it? And we're not talking about anything outlandish. You're not telling them, okay, you need to accept this offer that's $50,000 less than your list price. But it's one of those things where you're just trying to get them to do something that needs to get done, because we have that on a daily basis. How many of you have a listing right now that needs a price reduction? Okay, right? You can use this to get your price reduction. Has there ever been a time where you've got an offer on a property and it was going to be a little bit of a challenge when you presented the offer, and right, Nancy's like, that's never happened to me. And you knew that if they didn't take this offer, this was the buyer for the property, it just wasn't going to sell. You know what I'm talking about, right? Bev, you know what I'm talking about, right? So sometimes you have to have strong language without beating them over the head and making them feel like, oh my gosh, this agent's hands is around my throat and they're making me do this, right? So you have to make them feel good about it, or try to anyway. Okay. When we're using anchors, let's talk about this. Wouldn't that be great? Does that make sense? Wouldn't that be fabulous? Isn't that what you want? We've got to make sure that we end on a downswing, okay, in your language. You know what I'm talking about when I say downswing, right? We don't want to be on an upswing where, and this happens to new people when people are nervous, when they're presenting. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be fabulous? We're doing this. At the end of the sentence, it's doing this, and what that shows is a lack of confidence, or I'm not sure if you should be doing this, and I hope you do this. Please, please, please do this. Wouldn't that be great? Right? So you want to be, wouldn't that be great? And the way we practiced this was always we would bend down when we practiced. So if you're, and I highly recommend practicing this and this language, because when you use this language, when you're new, you don't sound like you're new, right? Automatically. When you're an experienced agent, I think what happens is you become reinvigorated, and I think you do even more business. I think it's even more powerful when you're an experienced person. And Linda, we have a seat right next to me all the way up in the front. No, you good. Right here's good. Judy, save you a spot. Linda was doing a deal.
She's hot right now.
She is. She's on fire. It's fun. So, you know, when we're talking about anchors, we've got to make sure that we're on a downswing, and we always practiced by doing that. Make sure your voice, you're doing this. Wouldn't that be great? As opposed to, wouldn't that be great? So remember that when you're saying that, when you're using that. Much more powerful, right? And Sissy knows what I'm talking about, because it's like, yeah, I do that, because she has that kind of voice, and you have to really work on that, right? You just have, you know, because that's, no, and it's hard. Yeah, that's right. Just don't do that when you're in front of the person. You're like, wouldn't that be great? You're like, what's wrong with it? They're going to think you're Japanese, you know? Yeah. So watch that. All right, so let's talk about the top 5 reasons why people want to move in the villages. So what are the top 5 reasons? Let's really try to use this in real live examples. So what are the top 5 reasons why people want to move, either in or out of the villages? Pat has his finger up. He went like this, the right one.
I got 2, weather and lifestyle.
Okay, so weather and lifestyle. So we know that people want to buy except for today. Well, it's still better than up north, right? Right? It's like 40, but it's not negative 40. So that's helpful. So weather and lifestyle, right? What else? Golf, okay.
Sometimes just upsizing or downsizing.
Upside, yes, right. Upsizing, downsizing. New house, they want something different. Okay. Can't stand what it's become. Too busy. Okay, they want to move out. Yes. Maybe want to get closer to family. Maybe it's health reasons. Okay. You know, and I think that, you know, I think it's important to emphasize the most motivating factors, the strongest motivating factors. You know, health reasons. That's strong. If they just can't stand, then it has to be a really strong can't stand, whatever it is, because people are either moving towards something or moving away. We're either afraid or attracted to something. That's how we operate as human beings. But when we're talking about a motivator, it has to be a strong enough motivator either to move away or move to. So just keep this in mind, that none of this works with unmotivated people. So you can say whatever you want. You can be the best salesperson in the world. You can have all the embedded commands, all the anchors, all the NLP training, be fabulous. You can sound like Tony Robbins, but it still won't work because the people don't want to move or don't have to move. So you always have to remember that. Okay? So we can say something like, if moving away from Sumter Landing because it's too crowded is important to you, then it would be really smart if you listed with me today. If you really wanted to get closer to the grandkids in Ohio, then it makes a lot of sense to get started today. Okay, so notice we're using the if-then, and we're using, you know, a common motivating factor here in the villages, and we're using the embedded command. So that's what you want to start doing. Start visualizing what that's going to look like in motivating factors that you've worked with and you can think of. This is the kind of stuff, and you've got to use it in your own voice. I wouldn't deviate from the structure. I think the important part of this is the structure of where things are said, how they're said, is very important. And you can use, there are different things that you can use, but the structure is very important. Okay? Now let's talk about embedded commands. The embedded commands are real obvious, right? What do we want them to do? What's one thing?
Do a sign.
List, sign, buy, sell, list with me, clean your house, right? I mean, whatever, lower the price, reduce the price, change the price. What else? Set an appointment. Let's set an appointment so we can talk about how we can get you to Ohio. Okay? Now let's talk about different types of people. To me, I look at, it depends on who you're talking to. For instance, if you're talking to emotional people, you want to use words that are emotional, they're a little bit, something that they're going to feel and something that they're going to sense. It's all about feel, it's touch, it's not about what's logical necessarily, but more of a, you know what I'm talking about, the type of person that's going to be huggy-feely, that's going to be really more emotional, more an amiable personality type. That's what we're talking about.
A lamb.
What?
A lamb.
A lamb, yes, thank you. And this is what we're talking about. The interesting thing, and Bev is bringing up some of the training that she's experienced, and I think that if we get trained this way, then we're going to be much more powerful in what we do. Okay? Much more powerful. You're going to get more listings. You're going to get more sales because of it. Okay? So if you feel comfortable and confident when we discuss how we're going to get your home sold, are you planning on listing with me when I come over later on today? Okay, so it's more of a softer approach. You know, if you feel comfortable, if you feel confident that we can get your home sold in the time that you'd like to get sold and the price that you want, are you planning on listing your home with me? Which is part of the qualifying script that we have. But I'm just using some of the language that you need to start using. Are you sensing the changes in your conversations? Are you feeling, are you sensing, are you feeling, are you comfortable, you're confident, that type of thing. So now let's look at an aggressive approach. Let's say you're working with someone that's going to be kind of a know-it-all, okay? Which is like what? Every guy that's over 55, right? That happens, right? But you know, people with guys that have more experience, it's hard to convince them otherwise, and they know it. So you're going to have to, like Laura's volunteering.
She's
So you're from Jersey, right? Okay, good. I'm insulting everybody in the room today. It's great. Not very good. So let's talk about that. So what are you going to say? You're going to have to use words like, obviously, Laura, you know that the best thing to do is going to be to list with me when we get together later on today. Obviously, and as you know, you've got to start using that type of language with Laura because Laura knows it all, right? But you know what I'm talking about. That type of personality, there's nothing wrong with it. But you're going to have to know how to communicate with people that are shutting you off and don't need to talk to you because they know exactly everything there is to know about selling their home, about buying a home, even though they've never bought a home in Florida and they've never sold in this marketplace. They still know it all. So you have to play along with that and not be confrontational. So you can change what they're thinking by including them in your thoughts. So what you're saying is, let's get an example. Give me an example of something that you have heard someone say that we need to combat. What would that, give me an example of that, and we're going to talk about how to address that.
I sold a lot of my houses myself.
Good, okay. So, obviously, Jan, you've sold a lot of houses on your own, so you know exactly how to get it done. You know that you need an aggressive agent like me to get the job done. And then you can, whatever else you're going to say. So as you know, Jan, so you've got to start, as opposed to, I can do this is what I can do for you, this is how we ought to get it done, this is what we have to do here. And Jan is like, no, it's not, I know this is the way to do it because I've sold 5 homes, even though Jan sold 500. They still think they know more.
Instead of using the word aggressive, I use the word assertive, only because I think that
Yes?
men think that's a man thing.
Yeah.
Men are aggressive.
Yes.
Women are not, or
Right,
shouldn't be.
right.
If you are, then you're a different kind of woman.
Yeah. That's another seminar.
I don't know if I'd go there, Jan.
That's the, all right. However you want to, however you want to describe that person, that's okay. But that's, assertive or aggressive. That's how you're going to approach that person. So you have to recognize that, and as soon as you recognize it, don't hit yourself against, don't hit your head against the wall. Like, gosh, how do I get through this person? They're so obstinate. They're dumb. They're this. They're that. He was such a jerk. I can't believe it. Darlene had this. He dismissed you. Remember? He's like, see ya.
Through with you, little lady.
Yeah. Yeah, he was like, just like that. He was like, yeah, I'm done with you. So it was like, that way. So once you pick up on that kind of personality type, you can quit. You can say, well, yeah, I just don't want to work with that person and walk away. Or you can try your best and use really powerful language that they're going to get and be able to communicate with this person. All of a sudden, even though you don't like them, they may like you, which does happen. Okay, and they're like best buddies with you because, this person really gets me. And that's where you want to be with people. I mean, that's how you develop really strong relationships, right? Okay. So let's talk about,
Go back to that
yeah,
again.
sure.
She said, I sell a lot of my homes myself.
Yes.
How would you come back to that person?
Okay, so we're talking about an assertive person, is that what we're talking about? So obviously, Jan, that you've sold so many homes in your life that the right way to do this is to hire me to get your home sold. So let's talk about an assertive or an aggressive marketing plan. Doesn't that make sense? And Jan will say, well, since she knows it all, she'll be like, yeah, that's, of course, I know that. Let's look at the plan. Yeah, I know that. Even though she doesn't, but she says that. But that's how people like that think. They're like, you can't tell me anything that I don't know. That's how they think. That's their thing. So whatever you say, if you don't get them and kind of give them the, this, Jan, I know you know this. And you never say but. Okay, so just eliminate all your buts. Okay, no buts. Eliminate the buts because as soon as you say a but, you're eliminating everything before that. So you can say, Jan, you're absolutely right. You know everything there is to know about real estate, but I know more than you. Okay, so, but you don't, but, this, and this. And basically what you're saying is yeah, no. I've given you a compliment, but I just took it back. Okay, that's basically what you're doing. So eliminate your but. So no matter what it is, say and. Even though you're disagreeing with everything that they just said, because they said, oh yeah, you need to do this, this, and this to sell a home. You're like, oh my gosh, they don't know anything about this process. So you're going to say, okay, and, you really need this. This is what we really need to do. Okay? So let's...
You should bring him in with you. In other words,
Yeah.
he knows it all.
Yes.
So because he does that,
Yes.
why not bring him in and say, I know you know this.
Yes.
Now, if you can help me, we'll both, and I'll have an aggressive plan to put this thing on the market.
Yeah.
But you want to bring him in.
Absolutely. Yes, that's right. You want to bring them in included. You're going to include them in your itinerary. You're going to include them into your plan. You've got a plan. We know what it takes to get a home sold. We should never be in a listing presentation where the seller is telling us what to do and they know more than us. Because that's the most ridiculous thing in the history of real estate. That the seller knows more about selling a home than we do. Now sometimes they'll think that. I get that. But you should never allow the seller to take control of the situation. And in reverse, we should never let the buyer dictate what's going on because you know what it's going to take to get the property. You understand. And sometimes they want to do this and you can't change their minds. But at the same time, you've got to at least advise them as to what's going to be the best method. Okay?
A lot of times if you've got a buyer that's procrastinating, the best thing to say, and Linda will do this, how long are you going to put your life on hold?
Yes?
Somebody says, oh, I got to do this or that. How long are you going to put your life on hold?
So how we can implement...
How long are you going to put the rest of your life on hold?
Yes. So what we can say is Bev and Linda, obviously you really do want to move, and I know that you've shown an interest in this Lantana. So obviously it would make sense to buy this home. And Linda and Bev may say, well, I just don't know. I think we want to do this. And a response, just like Bev said, well, you know, why don't we do the right thing? I mean, really, how long do you want to keep your life on hold or put your life on hold? Doesn't that make sense? Right? So you include that into your dialogue. Any questions so far? Is this interesting or a waste of time?
Were you becoming aggressive?
Passive aggressive, yeah.
You really want an answer?
Yeah, what kind of answer do you want?
Well, nobody's fallen asleep, so we're in good shape.
Lynn, how do you feel with that?
I haven't fallen asleep yet, so that's good.
So what's your point?
So what are you saying? All right, so let's talk about a situation here. Let's talk about somebody who's actually trying to sell on their own. Okay, I'm going to read you some lines here that we can use. So you've been selling on your own, and these are facts that you can come up with, you know, in qualifying. These are questions you've asked them, and these are some of the things that you figured out. Okay, so number one, you've been selling on your own for 2 weeks. You've advertised in the paper, and you haven't had any offers, okay, for sale by owner. So you've been on the market for a couple of weeks. You've advertised in the paper. You haven't had any offers. That shows us that you need an aggressive agent or a great agent or a powerful agent. Okay? And as you're doing that, you know, it could be on the phone, it could be in person. Notice I did this. I pointed to myself. A powerful agent, a strong agent, experienced agent, whatever it is.
Question.
Good, thanks. Professional agent. And sometimes you got to alter that. And then you go, Nancy's doing this. All right, if that works for you, do that. That's right. Okay. So obviously you need an aggressive agent. Now keep in mind that's the embedded command. You need an aggressive agent. Okay, that's an aggressive agent, after you've pointed to yourself, to get your home sold. So let's go over that again. You've been selling on your own for a couple of weeks. You've advertised in the paper. You haven't had any offers. That shows us that you need an aggressive agent, an experienced agent, a powerful agent to get your home sold. Frank, I am that agent. Okay? When can we get together? Later on today or tomorrow? That's when you're going to set the appointment. So a lot of times we use this language, and then we forget to ask for, you know, sign the contract. Let's list the Sometimes we get into a whole diatribe of say this, and that was great, and then we say, oh, and then I've got to tell you about my marketing plan. And then, you know, this is what else I'm going to do. I'm going to have open house. I'm going to do this, this, and this. Then we forget. Then we lose that whole moment. And that was our moment to ask them to sign the contract or list with us or lower the price or whatever it is that we want them to do. Okay? Using words like unconsciously, spontaneously, automatically, instinctively. Also very strong. Okay, this is another possible technique for you. Other than if and then, we're going to say unconsciously, automatically, spontaneously, instinctively. Okay, so you can say you're automatically or instinctively believing that I am the right person for the job of selling your home. So automatically, after we've looked at the marketing plan, automatically, Judy, you're thinking, I'm the right person for the job of selling your home. Okay? Or you're instinctively feeling that you should set an appointment today. Or automatically, you're thinking that we should set an appointment today. Or automatically, because of what we're seeing on the marketplace, you need to lower your price. Okay? As opposed to, you know what, let me show you the comps. I really feel like you should lower the price because you know, based on what I'm seeing here, we went on Caravan the other day and we looked at a couple homes, and this home was, you know, less than yours, and it sold in 2 days, and yours is still on the market, and I know you want to move, and I think you should lower the price. Okay, that's what our conversations will sound like a lot of times, as opposed to something a little bit stronger, a little bit streamlined, and I think we'll get better results. Let's talk about objection handling. Okay, we've gotten into a little bit of this. So what makes you different? Right? Why should I list with you if you're in competition? Who's gotten that one before? Right? The objections don't change. I think there's, how many objections do you think there are? 10 or 15 maybe? At most. I think we'd have to stretch. I think we'd probably come up to 6 or 7. Okay. So what makes you different? And that's a great question. Paul, that's a great question. Why should you list with me? All right, you're going to get the job done. So that's a great question, Paul. Let's talk about setting an appointment today so I can show you how I can get the job done. Or if you're face-to-face, let's talk about the differences between me and everybody else. Okay? If you're not getting anywhere, let's say that's, you know, you're kind of stuck. Like, okay, what you've shown them the marketing plan, this is what you do, and they still want to kind of think about it. Okay? So tell me, what are you thinking about specifically? What are you thinking about? You know, obviously you've told me that you want to think about it, but let's talk about this. What are you thinking about specifically to get them to kind of flush out that response? And that could be, you know, I want to kick it around, I want to mull it over. You know, what are you thinking about specifically? Let's talk about that. Here's another line to use about being different. It's not about why I'm different. It's about what you think about the person that you hire. Okay? Or it could be, it's not about why I'm different, or how you. It's more about how you feel about the person you choose. So tell me, what qualities are you looking for in the agent that you choose? Okay, why are you different? You can flip it around, and what you're doing is you're kind of, it's more of a, what they call a level shift. So you're getting them to think, okay, well, why should I choose you? And you're going to switch it around, and you're going to start asking them, okay, what specifically are you looking for in an agent? What qualities are you looking for? And they're going to say something, whatever it is, and of course you're going to try to match yourself with whatever they're looking for. Right? So, you know, why are you different? So tell me, you know, it's not about the qualities necessarily, it's about how you feel about the specific agent that you choose. So tell me, what qualities are you looking for specifically? Who's ever gotten, I need to net this amount? Popular one, right? It's like, I've got to have this. And how many times has this ever happened where they said they had to net this and they ended up taking less at a later time? Okay? Right? We've had that before. So let's kind of address that. I think one way to address it is, so tell me, Francis, which is more important to you, the money or the move? The money's more important. So, okay, which is, sometimes it is, which is okay. And that's right. And any answer is okay. It's never, inside we're like, oh man, I can't, you know, I wish she said this. But she said the money. So what you're saying, Francis, is that unless you get $250,000, you're not moving.
Not necessarily.
Okay, you're not saying that. Okay, good. So now we're finding out it's not necessarily the money. Okay, she's playing a little bit of a game, which is okay because oftentimes we're in a presentation, they feel like it's us versus them. They feel like they're bidding against us, like we're trying to buy the home and they're going up and we're going down. We're trying to get them to be at a realistic price and they're going up because they think that we're going to try to steal it or whatever. There's a trust issue. So she says not necessarily. So let's talk about that. Why do you want to move?
Closer to family.
You want to get close to the family. So if an offer came in at $235 and it was a clean offer and you can move in the next 30 days and get closer to family, would that be interesting for you? Okay, so now we've got to get a little bit more dialogue, because sometimes they say, no, I've got to have 250, and they bang their fist on the table, and this is what I got to have. So you take it as gospel and say, okay, it's 250, and then you're like, man, this is going to be hard, and then you get into, I don't think we're going to be able to get 250. That's not going to work. I think, the price is 230, and it's obvious. Look at this. Like, I don't like this person, next. And that's what happens. As opposed to, let's have some reasonable dialogue, because all of a sudden she kind of softened a little bit. Well, or she may say, no, I mean, if I don't get it, I'm not moving. I can't move. That's it. Well, you might be on an unqualified appointment, and that's okay. You can't make her sell. If Frances doesn't want to sell, she's not selling. We know that. Okay? Another process we can use. This is something that's very interesting. I actually just used it. And you've got to convince somebody of something. Okay, you've got to get them, they're here in this position, you're here, and you got to get them somewhere in the middle. And I think what you have to do is, you have to use an example like this, and I think you've used this, I think you probably have used this before. Julie, has there ever been a time, and I think you have to come up with a situation that's going to be equal to the situation that you're in, to try to convince Julie to understand that the situation we're in is just like the situation like this. And that's what we're trying to set up. I'm kind of painting a picture here. So Julie, has there ever been a time where you had to make a tough decision, right? And you basically had to grit your teeth and bear it.
Sure.
And then in the long run, it worked out, right? Mm-hmm. Well, this time is like that time. Okay. And what we're talking about is, I think this really works well when you're trying to get people to lower the price, either in a price reduction or lower the price in a listing presentation, or somebody's trying to buy it and they're still low and they need to be higher, right? Prices, list price is $275, it's probably worth $270 all day long, it's a great place, and they want to offer $255 or something less. Whatever it is you're trying to do. So you've got to bring them into that realistic world of whatever you need to get them to do, and say, Julie, has there ever been a time, kind of a difficult time, where you had to, really grit your teeth and bear it, and it wasn't fun, it's kind of painful, but then at the end you were happy you did it? Well, this time is exactly like that time. Okay, and you're feeling inside, you're like, it's a tough conversation, but it's one of those, you know what I'm talking about, the conversation you have to have, but you're really, you put it off maybe a week or two, especially if it's a price reduction. Like, I don't know that I want to call this person. Well, I think that really works well in those kind of situations. And you can use embedded commands in there and anchors. Because, Julie, this is exactly like that time. So let's do the right thing and sign the contract so you can get the home that you've been wanting. Wouldn't that be great? So that's actually double embedded command. So sign the contract, do the right thing. Let's do it today. Let's get it started. Let's start the process. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't you agree? Okay. And the last one we're going to cover today, and we're going to have, after this, we're going to delve into more objection handling and doing some more script and dialogues for the folks that do want to stay. But we're almost done with the NLP portion of our program today, sponsored by Jay. You got that, Sean? Sponsored by Jay. Sean's going to talk in a minute about what he does. I'll introduce him in a minute. So the last point, the last objection handler is, we want to sell it ourselves. Okay? And I think something you could use with people that want to sell it on their own is the passive and aggressive, or as Jan Ennis said, assertive, however you want to say it, aggressive, assertive. I'm going to pick on Jan. So it could be passive versus aggressive. And a lot of the techniques that a for sale by owner or someone that wants to sell it on their own will use are passive techniques. Because what are they going to do? What do for sale by owners do to sell a home? Bless you. Right? They'll do open house after open house after open house after open house, which is, we do that too. It's okay. And they may advertise, okay? They're not going to expose it to all the people that we can expose it to. They're not going to be as aggressive about getting their home sold as you will be, okay? So I think you have to use the passive and the aggressive. So a lot of the techniques you're going to use, Marge, are going to be passive techniques, where you've been doing open house after open house after open house, and you want to make that a little bit dramatic, you know, a little bit of drama. If she's into drama, like, yeah, do you really want to do open house after open house after open house? And have people traipsing through your house, all these strangers that are not qualified and the nosy neighbors. Do you really, really want that? Or do you want an aggressive agent like myself for the job of selling your home? Well, what makes you aggressive?
Well, I just want to try it for a couple of months.
You want to try it for a couple of months. Are we face-to-face or over the phone? Okay, so you want to try it, and I've done qualifying, so I know what you want to do and where you're going and all that kind of stuff. So we're face-to-face, and you want to try it on by yourself for a couple of months. Well, let me ask you this, Marge. If I can show you a way where we can get you gone and move to Indiana in the next 90 days and net you what you want to net, would that be of interest to you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. So now I'm going to get into, if we've covered the marketing techniques, let's say you've covered all the things that you've done, okay, or what you're going to do, your aggressive marketing techniques. You're also going to talk about how you're going to net her more in the process. And we talked about that last time when we talked about working with for sale by owners and doing the numbers. And according to the National Association of Realtors, most for sale by owners will sell for 10% less than the asking price. And we also know, Marge, that oftentimes when buyers approach you as a for sale by owner, they're expecting a reduction in commission. So they're naturally expecting that there's a 5 or 6% commission, so they're naturally going to offer you 5 to 6% less. And that's not what you want, is it? No. Okay, so let's get started today. Sign the contract. Let's get started. Right? Let's get started. Let's go. Okay. Any questions? I think that's, what time is it? I guess that probably wraps us up. We'll cover questions, or we can go over anything that, I don't know, did I go through it fast or slow? Fast? Okay. Medium? We can go over all the other stuff if you want to.
Is there any like reading material or anything that you could follow up on this?
There is, the people,
Recommended that you recommended? Yeah.
no, and I'll tell you why. The people that came up with it are extremely boring. Seriously, they're like psycho, you know, they're psychos. I mean, the people are just like really, really deep thinkers, and they got into this Neuro-Linguistic Programming, and it's not, I tried to read it, I forget, the guy's name is Richard Bandler, I think is the guy. Is actually the founder, the discoverer, the inventor of NLP training, like original stuff back before anybody even used it. So if you ever want to read his stuff, Richard Bandler, I started reading a couple of chapters, like, my gosh, I didn't know what was going on. So I was like, what is this crazy stuff? One of the things that I think you need to do, I think you've got the basic structure. I think what we have to do is, and I think we can do that next, kind of moving forward into, you know, let's merge into something else, is I think let's talk about how we can use and maybe structure some of these things and that would make sense in what you're using on a daily basis. I think that'd be helpful. But yeah, you can dig it up. I think Anthony Robbins does a lot of stuff like this. But maybe Google NLP. The only person I can think of is Richard Bandler, and I think there was another guy that was his partner. I don't think they're alive. I think it was done like in the 50s that did this stuff. I mean, really strong stuff. But some people just kind of, okay, this is how the brain works. This is how we need to work with personality types. This is what we need to say. This is how we need to say it. And then real estate people, there's some real estate trainers that have put this to use. There is somebody actually that now I'm thinking about, Matthew Ferry. Matthew Ferry does a lot of, he taught NLP. I learned a lot of the NLP from him. I took training seminars from him. He did a lot of conference calls years ago on NLP. And he's really the best. He's the best that I know at it. He's really, really strong. When he does it, it's like, wow, that's pretty incredible. Really good. Jan?
Do you mean Michael Ferry?
No, Matthew Ferry is Michael's son.
Oh,
Yes. Yeah. Mike Ferry, I started out with Mike Ferry 15 years ago in a lot of his trainings and went through his coaching program. And at that time, Matthew and Tom were still working for Mike Ferry. And then all of a sudden, about 5 years later, they got into a big argument. Tom started talking about open houses. Mike Ferry didn't believe in open houses, so he fired his son, and he went and did this. Matthew worked for Michael a couple of years, and then he wanted to do NLP training, but Mike didn't believe in the NLP training. He thought it was too wishy-washy and kind of too, wasn't something he can put his hands around. So Matthew started his own company and started his own NLP training. So that's how that took place. Then Matthew came back and did some stuff. So yes, but yeah, dig up Matthew Ferry. He's probably a good person. And actually, I think he did a few books too. I don't know if he did it on NLP training or not, but a lot of his stuff is on mindset and how to use language, that type of thing. So, Marge?
Not to be negative, but do you think people can tell what you're doing?
No. You can tell what I'm doing because I'm purposely being, I'm not being weird, but I'm purposely being, I'm overdoing it so you understand where the emphasis is. So when you do this, at first, I mean, if you're bending over and you're, yeah, I think people are going to think you're a weirdo, and they're not going to listen with you or do anything with you. And they're going to call me and say, what's wrong with this realtor? So, but here's the thing. I'm glad you brought that up because I think it's crucial. And I'm going to start doing this for the people that are really serious. We're going to do some of this like afterwards. If you're really serious about this, we're going to do practice on it. I think it's crucial that you role play it, you practice it, and make it part of you, as opposed to, if you sense that this is the right move, then I think you should list with me. You're being a little bit odd and kind of you're just not comfortable with it. Then it's not going to come out right. Then I think people will like, what are you doing? Or if you're being overboard, because you can take it overboard, then they're like, okay, you're being a little bit too pushy. Like, what the heck are you doing? So if you're doing it correctly, and if you practice it and make it part of your inner workings of how you really speak and how you communicate, you don't have to communicate with your children like this or your friends. But when you're in real estate mode, because we put our real estate hats on, we're not like this when we're at home. We're in shorts and just hanging out and eating cake and coffee, right? Right? I don't know about you, but I'm a totally different person when I'm at home. I'm like,
What kind of a person are you?
who are you?
One dad.
Yeah, I'm a dad. I put my dad hat and husband hat on, right? We all do that. But then now we got to sell real estate. Man, it's really hot in here, isn't it? No, it's me. I'm sweating over here. It's a sweater. Should open up a window or something. But that's the thing that we have to do. We just have to make it part of ourselves. And if we make it part of ourselves, it'll sound more natural. You'll sound. I promise you this: that if you do this, you will have great success. Because I think the biggest challenge we have, especially the folks that have been in the business before and have not heard this before, the people that have worked for the villages, you guys get this, you've had this kind of training, you know this is kind of, okay, I know that. For the people that haven't heard this, or the people that are vets and don't know any better, or people that know better, it's hard for us to take this in and internalize this. And that's really the word. You've got to internalize the scripts and dialogues where it sounds like Jan and it sounds like Carol naturally. It's just kind of, it's you, but you're using the embedded commands, you're using the anchors, you're using all this just in your tone, and then it's really strong. So, good. So let's Jan?
Don't you think or do you believe that a certain amount of adapting based on the people that you're talking to?
Mm.
Because it's like I'm listening to, you know, all these and I'm going, gee, I know somebody that I wouldn't say it. I say that.
Let's talk about that. So give me an example of who you would not use it on.
Probably you.
Actually, no, and with some, and here's the thing, and I studied personality types, and the people that worked over at the villages have studied personality types, and they have different names than what I'm used to, but I think the lamb is the amiable personality type. You know, for me, I've got the four. Let's do this. Amiable is lamb. What's an expressive personality type? The person that's kind of outgoing, is in the middle of everything. What animal is that? The tiger. Okay, the tiger.
He's here, he's there. Then
Right.
the bull, then you got the owl.
Okay, and the bull is the driver personality. Okay, the person that's usually a boss, somebody that's in charge, somebody that knows it all is going to be the bull. Okay. And then the owl is the analytical personality. They're typical, the engineers, the accountants, that type of thing. So you've got to remember when you're working with different types of people, you're communicating with them and using different words depending on who you're talking to. So with the owl, you know, you're going to use think, you're going to be think, you're going to be talking about time, you're going to be talking about, you know, it's about numbers, it's about information, it's about, you know, those types of things. But the amiable, it's going to be, you know, feeling and sensing and comfortable. And the driver, it's going to be, you know, you already know it. So this is, you know, this is what we're going to talk about. And I know you know this, so this is what we're going to do. You know, so you have to include them in that way. So it just depends on what kind of verbiage. I mean, it just depends on what personality type will, and that's how you're going to use it. Does that make sense? So you're going to use it on everybody. You know, nobody's immune to it. But, you know, with the bull, like with me, at times I'll be a driver type. I'm not always a driver, but when I'm in professional mode, I get into driver mode, like bull mode. And you have to, you know, include me. You have to make me feel like I know everything. It's kind of like, Glenn, I know you know this already, and this is what is happening here. You know, this is, or whatever the thought is. And just make me feel like just make me feel good about it. And that's what it is. It's just making people feel good about what you're telling them. You know, making them feel good about listening, making them feel good about buying. And it's just the words that you're going to use to get them to feel comfortable. Okay? Good? Do we have, why don't we cover what we're going to do? What time is it now? Okay, good. So you want to take like a 5-minute break. Okay, brief break, and then we're going to jump into some other stuff. So for the people that want to stay, great. If you don't want to stay, that's okay. But we're going to cover some really cool stuff too. We're going to get into objection handling, and I think Keisha, you brought up a script. I don't remember what it was. We're going to get into it. So if you can remember what that was, we'll get into that too. Good? Take a quick break.